Colo with GrowingYourGreens.com. Today I have another exciting episode for you, and what I'm going to talk about today is something near and dear to my heart. I'm going to talk about Brix testing. So in a recent episode, I don't know, a dozen episodes back or so now, I did an episode on Brix testing watermelon that I purchased at a local supermarket and actually at a local farmer's market. The point was to show that a lot of the produce, even at your local farmer's market, may not be that good quality. And I had some comments that said, John, why don't you test your own produce? Well, I've been testing my own produce for years now, and actually I posted a clip going back like 4 years to like Brix testing my grapes, because that's what you normally Brix test. But in today's episode, I happen to have a whole lot of fresh produce here, and I'll be specifically testing one of the crops that I'm currently growing. And I actually bought 2 different kinds of peppers to show you guys, store-bought versus fresh-picked, homegrown, and the difference that the soil and proper harvest time can make. So that's what this video is all about. Now, the reason why I'm passionate about Brix testing is because our system, as it's set up today, is a monetary system, and our monetary system pays farmers on weight. So, for a box of organic peppers, you get paid $20 or $30 or whatever it is wholesale. And then for retail, it's like $4 a pound, $5 a pound, depending on where you live. And all they're concerned about as a farmer and the monetary system is making the moolah, making the dollar. So they want to produce the heaviest crop they can to fill up the boxes the fastest they can, so they could sell more boxes, so they could, basically get more weight out there and make more money. For the most part, most industrial farmers and even, local farmers, small scale farmers selling at farmers markets are not super concerned about the produce quality. And as a home gardener, this is where you can really shine, and this is where I encourage you guys to take it to the next level. And that's what I teach. The gardening practices that I use, that I teach, including building your soil, using the beneficial fungi, the beneficial microbes, the compost, both thermal and fungal based composts, the rock dust, the sea salt to get the trace minerals back into the soil, will all build the Brix and basically give you a much better tasting product, a more nutritious product, and more importantly, a product that's going to be able to store longer throughout the year. So with that, let's go ahead and start testing some of this produce. So you guys can see we got a Wholesome Harvest organic vegetables in here, and inside here we have a whole case of organic peppers, and these are just the standard organic bell peppers. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take our Brix Tester, and how the Brix Tester works, for those of you guys that didn't see the past episodes, you're going to take a little bit of juice of the crop, squeeze it on the little refractometer here, and then hold this up into the light, and you're going to look inside here, and we'll show you actually a picture what I'm looking at inside here. And as you guys can see, it's like a scale from 0 to 32, and right now it's all blue because I don't have anything on the little glass here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take a pepper, and if I was like Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'd be able to crush the pepper and squeeze out the juice. I'm not superhuman like that, so what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and break off a piece of the pepper here. And literally, once I have a piece of the pepper, I can just squeeze off the juice here. And all we need to do is get a couple drops. So now we have a couple of drops. We're just going to close our refractometer, make sure it's have a good solution, and we're going to look at this. So right now, as I look through the refractometer, it's approximately 5.5 on the Brix scale, and these are organic peppers. Something that you might be buying at your local Whole Foods or other supermarket. And so 5.5, is that good for a pepper, bad for a pepper? I don't know, we need a reference range. And we have here a refractive index of crop juices, and this will tell you if something's poor, average, good, or excellent, and it depends on the specific crop. So we're going to go down to bell peppers. So a poor bell pepper is 4, so I'm glad these are not poor bell peppers. An average is 6. These were 5.5, so they're just under average. A good one is 8, and an excellent one is 12. So this one is actually right under average. So these are organic peppers you would buy at your local Whole Foods or other supermarket for like $4 a pound. And they're basically below average. To me, that's not acceptable. I mean, average should be acceptable. They shouldn't even harvest stuff or be growing in, if it's going to be below average, closer to poor. In any case, just for reference, let's go ahead and check another kind of pepper that I also like to purchase that, in my opinion, has always been in a much higher quality than just the field-grown organics in most cases. Alright, so the next peppers I got, they're right in the fridge. Let's check out what we got here. So we got here are these, we got these Windset Farms, hothouse grown, and these are a product of Canada. I think the other ones are actually a product of Mexico. So I tend to think stuff from Canada is better than stuff from Mexico. So let's go ahead and open these guys up and grab out a nice little red pepper. So here's a little red pepper. So another reason why the Brix scale may be different is if like you're testing like Fuji apples, one Fuji apple versus another, the Brix is going to be different than testing a Fuji apple versus a Granny Smith. So the same difference can arise in peppers, so we want to keep that in mind. So anyways, let's go ahead and take a piece of this pepper off and squeeze some of this juice onto my refractometer. Alright, this one's not quite as juicy, so I'm going to need a helping hand. So to do this, what we're going to use is a standard garlic press. This is my favorite garlic press I found. It's actually from IKEA. That's another cool store. We'll put the piece of pepper in the garlic press, and we're just going to basically press down on the garlic press, and it's going to squeeze a couple drops of juice off. That's all we need. There we go. Now we're just going to close our refractometer here. Got a nice sample. Hold this up to the light, and what do we got? Check it out. We got a little bit over 10, so 10.25 is what we're looking at. And besides just the number, we're also looking at the demarcation line. And if it's like fuzzy, which we'll put up a picture of real quick for you guys, we actually want it to be fuzzy. That shows there's more dissolved solids and the food's probably more nutritious, because it's just not all about the number only. So this was about 10.25, so let's take a look on our chart what this is. So on our chart, 10.25 for bell peppers is actually good as 8, excellent is 12. This was 10.25, so that's between good and excellent, probably right about in the middle. So that's actually, this is a quite good pepper. So far, what did you learn? If you're buying peppers in the store, get the hothouse ones from Canada, eh? They're a lot better. So now we're in the backyard garden, and for the grand finale, what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to test my own homegrown peppers. So what you're looking at here is just a small raised bed. I don't know, it's maybe only like 8 inches tall, 4-foot diameter. We have probably over a dozen different pepper plants planted probably at least a foot apart or 11.5 inches apart or so, like really tightly. Most of them are all trellised up. I've had to actually stake them up because they're getting too tall and they would fall over and they'd break because all the weight of the fruit. You can see here are some actually sweet cherry peppers, still waiting for those guys to ripen up. And we got some here. These are actually called the Carmen sweet pepper. These are actually the Bonnie plants. And we're going to harvest one of these guys today. So let's go ahead and pick this guy off the plant here. And here we go, little Carmen sweet pepper. We're going to go ahead once again and take our refractometer and break this guy off. This guy is nice and juicy. Let's see if I can squeeze some juice on it. Right, kind of tough. I can squeeze one drop. Let's see if I get some more. Alright, let's go ahead and use the garlic press. That wasn't working too well. And the garlic press shouldn't be an issue for getting some juice off. Alright, there we go. Alright, got some nice juice on there. Close that guy up. Let's look it up and see what we got. Holy jeez! Check it out, man. We're kicking some ass. I wish you guys could see in here. On this pepper here, we're like right under 14. So I'm going to say like 13.8. And it's actually a fair bit cloudy. So 13.8 on the Brix scale. So let's check out what a 13.8 is for peppers. On the bell peppers, an excellent is 12. So this is totally proof that my bell peppers, or my peppers here, are kicking some ass. These Carmens, definitely some sweet peppers, but besides just the variety you're growing, which is very important, it's to build healthy soil so that you can have the highest Brix quality. You know, if you're going to use things like NPK, whether it's from even organic or, you know, chemically factory-made sources, you know, you're probably going to score lower in Brix because the plant is not getting everything it needs. So you guys just saw that my crops that I'm growing are much higher quality than the stuff you could buy in the store. Organic, hydroponic, shipped in, wherever it's from. You know, homegrown is always the best if you do it properly. The next thing I want to share with you guys actually is how to build your soil. Because I mean, this bed was just started this past season. This is the first full growing season I've had with this raised bed. So literally, I filled it up with a good soil mix, planted my plant starts, which are actually from Home Depot. And as you can see, I'm now breaking the Brix numbers. And I'm not no soil scientist. I didn't go to school for soil. I didn't do none of that stuff. I just do good things to build my soil, and nature happens. Of course, if I want to even dial this in further, I could get specific soil testing from some of the labs that do Brix testing and even dial this in further and maybe even get higher numbers. But I'm happy without paying all the extra money to get my soil tested by just doing some standard good soil practices, what I call good soil practices. You're going to get higher Brix numbers than your neighbor and be able to grow higher quality crops that are going to, number one, taste better, number two, yield better, number three, store better, and most importantly, be more pest and disease resistant, because a healthier plant makes healthier offspring or healthier babies or healthier fruits or leaves or vegetables or whatever the crop is. So next, I'm going to share with you guys my practices to build your soil so you can increase your Brix numbers and have some of the best tasting produce on the planet. So good soil starts with a good base. The base of what I filled my beds is this stuff right here. It's compost, and this is compost that I'm generating myself. Wow, you can feel the heat coming off. It's kind of nice on this windy day here. But compost basically adds organic matter and nutrients back in your soil. You know, you don't know what's in the soil or in the dirt in your backyard. Was it farmed before? Was there grass there before? Or the nutrients all sucked out of it? You have no idea, and that's why I like to build a raised bed so I can control the soil or the medium that I'm actually growing in. So in my soil mix for my raised beds, put a lot of compost. Actually, I'm using the Mel's mix based on the square foot gardening. 1/3 compost, 1/3 peat moss or coconut coir, and 1/3 vermiculite. That's a standard mix, but then I enrich it with a lot of other things. So let's take a look at some of the other things I'm using to build my Brix, to increase it and makes my plants some of the sweetest on earth. Alright, so besides just the compost, I add a whole mixture of other nutrients or amendments into my soil, and these are not just fertilizers. These are biologic agents of biology that will increase or put biology back in the soil, because we want soils that are alive. You know, in industrial farming, they don't want anything alive in the soil, because if it's alive, it could be something bad like a harmful disease or something like that. You know, in nature, there's beneficial microbes and there's harmful microbes. And in most cases, the beneficial microbes kick ass over the bad guys. But when you just remove the beneficial microbes, the bad guys could flourish. So we want to bring back the microbes. And if we bring back the microbes, the beneficial ones will dominate, kick ass over the bad guys, and build your soil. And besides just bringing the microbes, you got to bring in the things that are going to feed the microbes. And that's what I'm exactly doing. So we're not going to get really in-depth in this video on how to build your soil. We're just going to go over some of the products. Be sure to check out other videos on YouTube for making different soil mixes when I'm filling raised beds or whatnot. My basic blend is I use the Mel's mix that I just explained to you. I'll also add heaping generous portions of the organic worm castings. And this happens to be the AgroWin brand worm castings. I have also favored Wiggle Worm, which is actually what I use in that raised bed. Also like the Worm Gold Plus brand, but any worm casting will do. Add as much as you can afford. Definitely good stuff. The worm castings will add not only some small levels of nutrition at a slow release fertilizer, but also it's very active with the beneficial fungi and bacteria. They're going to get those guys back in your soil. So besides the worm castings, I use another kind of casting, and that's this right here. It's actually called the insect frass. The insect frass is basically poop from probably some kind of insect, probably something like beetles. I'm not exactly sure because they don't disclose that. But the insect frass, it's a 2-2-2 fertilizer, so it's also a slow release fertilizer. And in addition, it also adds the biologics, the beneficial bacteria and fungi back in your soil, so I like that a lot. Another way I add biologics back into my soil throughout the season is using something like this stuff right here. This is actually called the Boogie Brew Compost Tea. Compost tea is probably the most inexpensive, cheapest, and easiest way to get the beneficial biologics back into your garden. So I like the Boogie Brew brand compost tea. I mean, this thing has like the worm castings and a whole bunch of other good stuff in there. This could be actually fed through the root drench or through foliar feeding, actually, like that. So besides those guys, I also like to use this stuff right here. It's actually called the Boogie Humus. And the Boogie Humus, this is another kind of compost. You guys saw I use, majority of the thermally made compost, which is bacterial dominant. I'm also using this stuff, the Boogie Humus, which is made at a low heat. And this is a fungally dominated compost, basically made out of carbon or wood chips. And what this guy does is this actually adds the beneficial fungi, mycorrhiza fungi and other fungi as well back into the soil, because it's those guys and the bacteria that basically help escort nutrients into the plants. So how we're gonna feed those guys are by using something like this. We have the Spanish River Carbonite Volcanic Minerals Plus. And this is basically a rock dust. So whether you use this stuff here, an azomite, the Gaia Green Glacial Rock Dust, the Agro-Wind Minerals, or any other number of horticulture grade rock dust, or even just rock dust you could get at your local rock and stone quarry, we need to bring the trace minerals back into the soil. This is one of my keys to success and to building up the bricks and having healthier plants. Another product line that I've actually used this year, and this may also be a reason for my better increased bricks and gardening, is the John and Bob's products. So this is actually called the John and Bob's Microbes and Minerals. And I like this product because it actually not only has the minerals that are going to feed the microbes, but it actually also has the microbes. And there's also a line of other John and Bob's products that I also have been using in my garden. So now if you're wondering, you might be thinking, John, what if I could only add one product? I mean, it's hard to say like what one product I would add to get the beneficial results that I did. I mean, the results of my garden are a synergistic effect of all these products, which are only going to build the soil and build the biology in your soil so that your plants could have the best living and growing conditions, right? If I had to just pick a few, I'd definitely say go with the earthworm castings, probably like number one. Probably go with the rock dust minerals, number two. I then say probably go with the Boogie Humus, number three, the Compost Tea, number four, and then definitely I'd say go with like the John and Bob's products. I mean, all these products have really done amazing for me, and I definitely recommend if you want to get good growing results, use some of the products that I'm showing. I mean, the way that I show is basically biologic or natural gardening, how the forest does it. In the forest, there's no pixies spreading 20-20-20 fertilizer, but the leaves are falling, the bugs are pooping, the earthworms are in the ground, and there's the microbes that's in the soil that have been living there for eons without human intervention. The problem is when we get human intervention, we've built houses, we've tilled soil, it destroys the fungal hyphae, destroys the microbes and bacteria in there, and we need to use some products like this to replace them. One of these days, once I got all this up to snuff, I'll basically just have to put in what I'm taking out, which is maybe some minerals and whatnot, and some more organic matter to keep my systems going to provide me food year after year. In any case, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode learning more about the bricks in my specific garden and some ways you can build your bricks by using some of these products. Of course, some other ways to build your bricks besides just dialing in your soil is harvesting the crops at their peak ripeness. The riper the crop is, the higher the bricks it's going to be. So the last way to increase the bricks is to get the appropriate varieties of plants. Certain varieties of plants, like I talked about earlier, Fuji apples are a sweeter apple than Granny Smith apples, and are just going to bricks out higher from the get-go. So you want to pick, sweeter varieties of the crops if you're really looking for a high bricks number. I'm not all about the bricks, I'm about the nutrition in the crop, and bricks is one way to show that my crops are more nutritious. Another thing that I really want to mention also that will affect the nutrition in the crops is harvest your foods and then put them in your mouth. Don't harvest them, put them in the fridge, let them sit there for a week, because actually after you harvest the crops, the nutrition goes down over time. So I want you guys always to eat the highest quality food, the most nutritious food, and guess what? You'll actually need less of it. And you can easily do that in a small residential space to have enough salad greens and even other crops to feed you and your family. So I want to encourage you guys to check out my other videos where I have detailed videos on how to grow your own food. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, learning more about the Brix, and that I've proved once and for all that my crops that grow in my backyard are better than store-bought. I mean, any dummy could probably just think, oh, something you grow is probably be better than the store. It's rare that I've found anything that I bought at the store to be better than what I'm growing. On rare occasion, I find a good farmer that actually knows his stuff, that actually growing high-quality stuff, but more than likely, you know, nothing can top the stuff you're going to grow at home. I want to encourage you guys to continue to build your soil. If you are currently growing, and if you're not growing, start growing a garden today so you could benefit from the highest quality and best tasting crops that are coming from your backyard, maybe even your front yard. So if you're interested in learning more about how to grow high quality, biologic, organic crops, be sure to subscribe to my videos if you're not already, and be sure to check my past episodes. I have over 850 episodes that show me growing and show my travels and learning about how to grow high quality crops. I encourage you guys to tune into each and every episode because you're always going to learn at least a little tidbit of knowledge that's going to help you out to grow more food. Once again, my name is John Kohler with growingyourgreens.com. We'll see you next time, and remember, keep on growing.